Well, it's been a fun month, and here we finally are. And as I've been doing every year since I started reviewing movies here on YouTube, let us dive into the next entry of the iconic franchise that paved the way for all slasher movies that followed. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Halloween 4 was the first Halloween film to come out in 6 years after the notorious critical and audience failure of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. I've explained my thoughts on Season of the Witch on more than one occasion, but in case anybody hasn't seen those reviews, let me just briefly summarize. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is not a bad horror film. It was just very different than what people had come to expect from the Halloween franchise. After the second film, which was apparently going to be the final film to feature Michael Myers, John Carpenter wanted to turn the franchise into an anthology series, having each sequel be its own completely different story with no connection to the original movies. It was a good idea, but because the first sequel had already continued the storyline of the original film, I feel this idea was doomed to fail because audiences had become already attached to Michael Myers and his story. And after 6 years of presumably thinking real hard about how they wanted to continue this franchise and if it was salvageable, and after John Carpenter turned in a script treatment that was just turn the fuck down, Moustapha Akkad decided to continue the franchise, with or without Carpenter, and while Carpenter may not have decided to return and Jamie Lee Curtis was busy doing A Fish Called Wanda and other big films, the franchise still had Donald Pleasence, who was more than happy to come back, and the music scoring for this film was done by Carpenter's former longtime co-composer, Alan Howarth. And hey, if you can't have John Carpenter compose your music, Alan Howarth is the next best thing. Moustapha Akkad brought in new writer Alan B. McElroy and new director Dwight H. Little. A writer and director whose careers mostly stayed in the action genre, and in a way this led to probably the most action-feeling Halloween film. Dwight H. Little would later go on to direct the Steven Seagal film Marked for Death, Rapid Fire with Brandon Lee, and the family adventure film Free Willy 2, The Adventure Home. And Alan B. McElroy would actually later re-team with Dwight H. Little on Rapid Fire, as well as the 2009 film Tekken. His writing credits include the 1997 horror action film Spawn, the 2003 horror film Wrong Turn, the 2015 thriller The Perfect Guy, and this is a weird blip to find on his resume, the 2000 Christploitation rapture film Left Behind starring Kirk Cameron.
Oh, for Pete's sakes.
Donald Pleasence makes his triumphant return as Dr. Samuel Loomis, Michael Myers' therapist turned hunter. Now 10 years older with third-degree burns on his face from the explosion at the end of Halloween 2.
Look at me, Hoffman. Take a good look. I don't want anyone to have to live through that night again.
And while his obsession hasn't gotten that bad just yet, you can see the warning signs for the bad direction they're going to take the character in the next movie.
Die! Die! Michael, die! Die!
Dwight H. Little, the action movie expert he is, was really good at making a fast-paced, never boring, on the edge of your seat movie. Much like Season of the Witch, this is a movie where you look at it and you just think Halloween and the October season. The film has an outstanding opening sequence. We get a montage of a farm field with all these Halloween decorations and seasonal objects, and the way everything is positioned, framed, the wind effects, it just sets the eerie mood and tone for the film. Now, to be fair, there are a couple of dumb moments in this movie with the story and the characters, but it's never that bad. And in the opening sequence, we see Michael Myers in a sanitarium being prepped for transport to a new facility.
Welcome to hell.
He's apparently been in a coma for 10 years, ever since the explosion at the end of the second film, and originally this film was going to open with a flashback showing how Loomis particularly survived that explosion.
It is time, Michael.
And while riding along in the ambulance, the doctors talk about how Michael only has one living relative left.
Did Hoffman say anything about living relatives?
Yeah, a niece living in his hometown.
And apparently hearing that's enough to awaken him. And yeah, pretty convenient that he woke up just in time to hear that, but it drives the plot.
No, I still don't understand.
In Haddonfield, we see Michael's niece, Jamie Lloyd. Apparently, in between movies, Laurie Strode got married, had a daughter, and she and her husband just died. And before anyone asks if I was upset that they killed off Laurie for this movie, maybe a little, but not really. I mean, considering Jamie Lee Curtis wouldn't come back at the time, I feel what they had to do, what they had to work with, they did it pretty well, and they did a good job introducing a new batch of characters to, at the time at least, carry the franchise. And our new main character is Jamie Lloyd, played by a very young Danielle Harris, who we see is still emotionally broken by the death of her parents and constantly looks at old photos of her mom. She now lives with a foster family, and she has a foster sister named Rachel Carruthers, played by Ellie Cornell, who tries to be supportive and nice. It's clear they don't know each other that well, they haven't known each other that long, and
Do you love me, Rachel? Like a sister?
We're not really sisters, Jamie. But that doesn't mean that I love you any less.
Sure it does.
Danielle Harris's acting is, while not great, still reasonably okay for a child actor. It's not as unbearable as Miko Hughes. Her acting is at her best when she doesn't have many lines, when she just has to look sad or upset or has to cry. Like, it's not that hard to feel a little sorry for her. After a spectacularly done nightmare sequence where Jamie thinks Michael Myers is coming after her, it's so good you won't even question how she knows what Michael Myers looks like.
That's weird, man.
We cut to the next morning where the Carruthers tell Rachel she has to cancel her date and take Jamie trick-or-treating, and yes, it would be annoying to have to cancel your date, but what Rachel says, unaware that Jamie is there, really is pretty shitty.
I think tonight Brady was ready to make a commitment. But now my future relationship, my engagement, my marriage, my children, and your grandchildren have all been wiped out because I have to babysit. Oh, sure.
And we see that while Rachel may be a little bit of a selfish bitch, she does care and she is willing to work to improve her relationship with Jamie.
She wants to go out tonight. It's my fault you can't.
Well, tonight we're going to do something better. We're going to go trick-or-treating.
I don't want to. How come your mom didn't make you a costume, Jamie? How could you? Her mom is dead. Jamie's an orphan. Jamie's an orphan.
And because I guess bullying encourages people to face their fears, Jamie asks Rachel to take her trick-or-treating, and they go to a store to get her a costume, and also so Rachel can break the news to her extremely douchey-looking boyfriend, Brady, played by Sasha Jensen, that she can't make it.
When did you find this out?
This morning?
Well, you found out this morning. Well, why didn't you tell me before? I mean, it's 5 o'clock now, Rachel. Okay. I guess I'll call you later.
And as she's searching through the store selection, Jamie finds probably the most ironic costume she could find. A little clown costume. Not exactly the same, but very similar to the one Michael Myers wore when he killed his older sister back in the 60s. Rachel takes Jamie out trick-or-treating, and she seems to have a good night, and in a very weird moment, apparently bumps into the kids who were bullying her earlier, and because they think her costume's cool, they invite her to go trick-or-treating. So yeah, sorry about teasing you about your serial killer uncle and your dead mom. That's fine. Let's get some candy! And as they go trick-or-treating, they stop by the town sheriff's house, where the door is answered by the sheriff's slutty daughter, and Rachel notices her now slutty boyfriend inside.
I thought you were different from other guys.
Oh, I'm different. It's just that I just got pissed off. That's all.
Oh, really? Well, I'll just let you get back to little Miss Hot Panties.
It's Rachel.
Jamie?
Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis is making his way to Haddonfield when he stops by a gas station.
Hello.
And he comes across Michael.
Michael.
This is a pretty well done scene where he looks him down and says, "If you have to kill anybody, kill me."
But leave those people in peace. Please. Michael.
In one of the rare moments where he's apparently fast moving.
God damn you. Michael!
Yes, this was definitely made by a guy who makes action movies for a living. After a scene of Loomis trying to hitchhike and showing once again that whether they're little or teenage, kids can be fucking assholes.
Come on, old man, let's go!
Really? He's an old man. He clearly has a bad leg, and you just pulled a cruel prank like that? Fucking cunts.
Get it in gear, old man!
Lewis is then picked up by a drunk driving, God-fearing, raving reverend.
Apocalypse, end of the world, Armageddon. It's always got a face and a name.
Loomis finally arrives at Haddonfield, where, after establishing that Sheriff Brackett is long retired,
I need to speak with Sheriff Brackett. Well, then you'll have to travel about 3,000 miles south of here. What? Brackett retired back in 81.
we meet the new sheriff, Ben Meeker, played by Bo Starr.
And assuming what you say is true. It's true, Sheriff. All right, it is true. The hell can we do to avoid a repeat of 10 years ago?
I really like Bo Starr as Sheriff Meeker. He's actually, I think, one of the few character improvements over the original movies. Sheriff Brackett didn't really get to do much, and this sheriff, he's much bigger, more imposing, and he knows how to stock up, take charge, and protect people. And he and Donald Pleasance have some reasonably good chemistry.
Something? He's been here. How do you know? This is starting to spook me, Doc. Please, I'm not alone.
After finding Rachel and Jamie, and kind of funny, could have gone badly scene.
Is that him? Yes. Loomis. Hey, don't shoot! Oh, that was great.
They make their way back to the station where
How can a man do this, Loomis? Tell me. It isn't a man.
not sure what they're going to do. A group of drunk rednecks show up, and first the sheriff doesn't want them to know to avoid possible panic, but Loomis, thinking they have no one else to go to, tells them that Michael has returned.
How many people killed back there? How many kids? Well, not this time, Ben. I'll handle this my own way. We're gonna fry his ass.
And yeah, that was a pretty dumb and not well thought out move by Loomis, but as he points out,
Son of a bitch, you just created a lynch mob. You haven't got a police force. These men may be the only defense you've got. Let's hunt this bastard. God help us.
of course, being drunk and stupid, they end up killing some innocent person.
Shit, Earl. It's Ted Hollister.
Idiots!
It's hard to really say why this scene is here, other than they accidentally killed someone in Halloween 2. Maybe it's once again meant to show that when you're obsessed and not thinking straight, you really fuck up. Loomis, Sheriff Meeker, Rachel, and Jamie then make their way to the sheriff's home, where Brady and Kelly Meeker, played by Kathleen Kinmont, are in the middle of...
Oh, I think I'm in heaven.
Oh, it's my dad.
Your dad, your dad!
And while this is not the most explicit sex scene, and it's not really clear how far they even got, it is a very well shot, well lit, erotic scene that kind of looks like something you might see at 1 a.m. on, say, Cinemax or Showtime.
Kelly, I want you to close and lock all the downstairs windows.
Why?
Just do it. Where's the radio? Right through the kitchen, you'll see the basement stairs.
I love seeing Sheriff Meeker round everybody up and give them a job to do, and even Brady.
Think you can handle that?
Yeah, you want to tell me what's happening?
Yeah, when I have time. I'll catch you rope my daughter. I'll use that shotgun on you.
It's a pretty well done scene of him establishing a team and everybody preparing to face Michael Myers if he shows up, unaware that he's already in the house.
Don't worry.
I'm trying.
It won't be long.
After an awkward moment with Brady,
I'm gonna be outside, upstairs in the attic.
Loomis decides to leave because he has that obsessed, clouded idea of that he must be the one to kill Michael. And after a really uncomfortable moment with Kelly,
I didn't know you and Brady had anything, okay? You knew. You just didn't care. Wise up to what men want, Rachel. Or Brady won't be the last man you lose to another woman. Have some coffee.
Sheriff Meeker leaves to stop any more accidental shootings by the drunks.
Yeah, he's dead. Oh, Christ.
Kelly goes to the deputy on watch and tries to have a light conversation.
Pretty boring out here.
And in probably the dumbest but coolest kill in the film, speaking of which, Brady is the next to die. After trying and failing to be the hero of the story, we see Michael just crush his fucking neck in. And as this sequence happens, we also see Rachel and probably her only real dumb character moment.
Brady, come with us! Brady!
It's actually Jamie pulling her.
Idiots!
And I'm like, this is the asshole who cheated on you, who you were been pretty cold to throughout the night. Why are you suddenly like, no, don't go, come? Rachel and Jamie make it to the roof, and in probably the most suspenseful and nerve-wracking moment of the film, Rachel and Jamie run across the roof, holding on for dear life. These girls are really put through the ringer. Jamie is dropped hanging from a wire. Rachel falls literally 2, maybe 3 stories, and it's a miracle she ended up surviving. It's not impossible, but she's probably really fucked up inside.
Oh, come alive, Rachel. Please come alive. Don't be dead. You can't be dead.
Loomis then reappears and he takes her to the local middle school to hide, and to get in, he shoots off the locks on the doors. 'Cause, you know, Michael won't hear that. Totally won't hear it.
Totally.
After another well-done, tense scene inside a claustrophobic environment, which originally was going to feature a scene of Jamie being chased under various tables, a scene that would later reappear in Halloween H2O. Loomis is thrown through a door and knocked out. Jamie ends up falling down a flight of stairs, and the redneck posse shows up, and in an almost out-of-character moment, they actually come to their senses.
We have to get out of Haddonfield. The state police are on their way. Let them handle it.
I don't know about you, Earl, but that makes sense to me. Let's get the hell out of the police station. Let the troopers have him.
While driving down the highway, they encounter the state troopers, and to let them know what's going on, they fire their guns in the air to get their attention. There's not a chance that might get you killed.
Coming out of Haddonfield?
Yeah, I was in the elementary school. We're taking these kids to safety.
The leader of the posse, Earl, played by Gene Ross, drives Jamie and Rachel all the way down the highway, as his friends remain on the back with their guns at the ready, and they all stare straight ahead, believing they've made it. Michael appears on the back of the truck, apparently having hung on the whole way. And yes, I know it's a bit ridiculous, but this is Michael Myers we're talking about. He kills all the rednecks, and Rachel finds herself having to drive the truck. And as he gets back up,
Die. Son of a bitch!
originally she was going to hit him 5 times, but they changed it to 3 when filming. And I guess in the editing, they realized just how dumb that would look, so they cut it down to only 1 hit. Sheriff Meeker, along with the rest of the rednecks, show up, and as Rachel tries to get their attention, Jamie goes over to her uncle's body, holding his hand, with a face that could be curiosity, but might be something else.
Don't touch him, Jamie!
And in his most badass moment,
Get down!
now I will admit, at first this seems a little anticlimactic, and even Dr. Loomis, who is bloodied but still walking,
Michael Myers is in hell. Buried. Where he belongs.
to which we're like, what? You shoot him? I mean, he's been shot a shit ton of times before and that's never killed him, but you shoot him, he falls down a hole, and you think that's enough to kill him, but apparently everyone believes that. And what follows is we see the point of view of a killer, kind of like the opening scene of the original Halloween, and we see whoever this is put on a mask, pick up a pair of scissors, and we see Jamie's foster mother making her a bath, and whoever this is appears, and then we hear a blood-curdling scream. and we get probably one of the greatest shock, twist, cliffhanger endings ever. And Dr. Loomis just... And then the rest of the family shows up and stare in horror at the bloodied, scissor-wielding Jamie. And Loomis stands there on the verge of tears, crying no. Completely ignoring what came after this. At the time this came out, you watch this ending and you're left to many interpretations on this cliffhanger. Has Jamie inherited the killer instinct personality from her uncle? Is it built up just from everything that's been going on? And it's pretty easy to assume this, has Michael's soul gone into Jamie or something along those lines? I'll just say, this was an amazing cliffhanger that totally made me want to check out the 5th movie as soon as possible, and the 5th film went with the supernatural approach. Okay, I'm not saying supernatural shit couldn't work in the Halloween franchise, but the way they went about it with the 5th movie was just awful, and that's a review for next year.
Leopard sheep. Satin sheep. They're Rachel! Yeah, this flipped my...
This ending, despite not being followed up on the right way and pretty much being ruined in the next film, was on its own incredible. The image of Danielle Harris at the top of those stairs is still haunting to think about. Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers is, in my opinion, the last truly great sequel. Like 2, 3, and 4, I feel were all consecutively enjoyable, if not on the same level of awesomeness as the first film. 4, while it has a few flaws, a few bad writing moments, and you gotta give Alan McElroy credit, he wrote this movie in 11 days to beat out a writer's strike. For the limited time he had, he did a pretty good job, I feel. It was a straightforward slasher film, made in a very straightforward action way by Dwight H. Little, and the cinematography, the music, just everything about this film looks and sounds pretty solid. It's not a great film, but it's a pretty kick-ass one. If I had to give it a rating, I would give it a even 7 out of 10. And of course, I can't end this review without talking about George P. Wilbur, who was the Michael Myers for this film. I thought he was great, and he really got into the franchise, and he was one of the only actors to return as Michael Myers. And here's just a few fun little facts that I think are worth knowing. The teenage friend of Rachel's who drove her and Jamie to the store to meet Brady and get the clown costume was actually supposed to be an older Lindsay Wallace, the girl who was being babysat by Annie in the original Halloween. And as potentially cool as that would have been, they cut almost all of her scenes out except for her driving them due to budget reasons. In fact, a lot of scenes had to be cut for budget reasons. And I guess because they thought it would be too tragic of an end. Originally, the film was going to end with Jamie stabbing Rachel to death at the end, instead of her foster mother, who we find out in the next film didn't even fucking die. And I guess they thought, let's kill her off in the next film when she'll be unbelievably annoying, but the whole film will be unbelievably annoying, so it won't really mean anything. And the fact to close out the review on, John Carl Buechler, the director of the 1986 cult bad movie Troll and Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, was brought in after filming had wrapped to shoot some additional gore shots. His contributions include the opening scene in the ambulance where Michael kills a doctor by literally shoving his thumb through the guy's forehead. Retarded? Yes. Funny? Hell yes. And also, most notably, the death of the Earl character. Thank you for joining me this October. It's been a fun series of reviews, and I'm aware that this review came out a little earlier than I usually do when I put these videos out during the week, but it's Halloween and I want to do something on the Halloween day itself, and it's my show. I can do what I want, and if I want to put out more than how many Saturdays there are in this month, then I will fucking do it. You can never have too much in the month of horror. It's been a little bit of an uneven year. I'm not sure how many more or if I will do any more JMC reviews this year. Not saying I won't, but it's been a long year. I haven't put out as many JMC reviews as I would have liked to, mostly because I was working hard to make the 100th episode work, and I think that came out reasonably well. I can at least sit back and smile at the fact knowing that I was able to get a review out every week, at least for October. Thanks for watching, and it's nice to know there's still some people interested in listening to the opinions of this overworked, sleep-deprived half-a-fag. Have a happy Halloween, and see you next time.